A slave girl named Fran had picked up a sword who had reincarnated in a new world as a teacher. After passing a grueling test, Fran became an adventurer. Fran found herself helping out a party fighting against a horde of goblins. Although Teacher thought they might not have a good chance of winning, she bravely fought against the goblins. Teacher realized he had found a master when he saw her determination. Doris is shocked when he hears that Fran and her fellow adventurers have defeated over 100 goblins in a day. Fran had made huge progress in just a single battle, already reaching level 12. They apologize and ask him for their armor repairs right away to match her commitment. Recalling their recent adventures, Fran recollects that she was slaying hordes of goblins. Her fellow adventurers claim that she is committed to getting stronger together. Seeing this, D-class adventurers volunteered to cover Fran's back as she prepared to enter a mysterious goblin cave. Dynadron was shocked to hear that Fran had been killing hundreds of goblins in the wild. Klimt asked Fran how many people she had killed, and she answered that it was 130, of which 20 were high-tier ones. Klimt found it unusual that none of the 130 goblins had tried to escape back to their cave while losing the battle against Fran. Rewards are unbelievable. Klimt then suggested that they should form a party right away for exploration and offered Fran to join. He mentioned that if she were to come through, she would be promoted to F rank. Fran then asked Garrus about his experiences in dungeons. He explained that dungeons were trial grounds created by gods of chaos for humans. Old dungeons had a unique ecosystem in which rare monsters became home. He told her that the rewards from dungeons were unbelievable and that he had never seen anything like it. He also mentioned that the Goblin Cave wasn't actually a cave, but a dungeon. Fran is often rewarded with treasure from God for completing her trials. After she leaves, the teacher reviews her stats and realizes that she has grown stronger in all aspects. Although the teacher is obviously flustered, Fran insists that he take a bath with her and takes him along anyway. They meet now and then, and she later joins them for dinner. She tells them jokingly that it is bad manners to bring her weapon to a bath. They share her quirks and stories. Cupie's the top. Nell begins to talk to Fran about how her first dungeon exploration is nearing and gives her some encouraging words in the meantime. Fran now wishes Amanda had been there to make things easier in the dungeon. After Fran asks her who Amanda is, Nell tells her that Amanda is an A-rank adventurer who is very busy. Fran is also curious about the god of chaos, and Nell takes her time to explain to her the lore behind all the gods. She tells Fran that the first 10 gods are the strongest ones, with Sun Moon being the strongest. The gods of earth, fire, storm, forest, and beast created the life forms that currently exist. Among all the gods, Chaos is the 10th goddess and is known for keeping balance in the world. Nell explains how the god of war turned to the dark side and fell under the shackles of evil when discussing chaos. He was then defeated and split apart by the other gods, with his remains becoming monsters such as goblins, orcs, and fiends. The next day, Fran stops at Garrus's shop and finds a peculiar-looking pendant. The party members gathered in front of the dungeon, ready to embark on their first exploration. Dynadron was the first one there, giving instructions before the party could enter. However, before he could finish talking, goblins started to pour out of the cave and a full-blown battle took place right outside. The teacher was more than happy to collect a scabbard and rest himself inside the hold. Fran looked equally excited. The party was ready to face the challenge with all preparations complete. Goblins start to pour out of the dungeon. The goblins started to prove heavy on the regular adventurers, but they steered away from Fran, realizing her reputation as a goblin slayer. Fran then used a unique skill called Air Leap to jump high into the air from the top. She then used her magic for an explosive attack, which took down a load of goblins by itself. She cleared a path inside the dungeon and entered alone, leaving the party behind, after a series of high-power magic attacks. The party followed her, but their progress was much slower as more and more goblins started to pour out of the dungeon. The plan was simple: cover as much ground as possible, and if things got out of hand, use the Feather of Return for a quick escape. The goblins inside the cave stood up to the outside goblins, unlike the outside goblins. Teacher advised Fran to take care of the ones that had crystals first. He weaved through the horde, and let Fran know which ones had a crystal to give. After scaring away the mob, they spooked a couple of goblin archers who fled deeper into the cave. Fran carefully followed her teacher as they ran towards the king and queen. Donald and the party were doing well, but it was strange to Fran that so many goblins were left alive even though she had killed so many of them. Dynadron was worried that, as strong as Fran may be, she was still a kid. The teacher and Fran finally reached the king and queen, who were much larger than even the biggest goblins. They were surrounded by a small army of goblins. The teacher proposed a plan to thin out the army by using heavy spells and using the chaos as a distraction for Fran to directly engage them. The king and queen had become wary of Fran's presence, so the teacher proposed this plan to take advantage of the situation. Fran held them high as he began to launch fire magic, making flames rain all over the goblins. Fran covered the field in smoke and readied herself to fight the king and queen, only to realize that the explosions had already killed them. After Fran's friend asked him if the exploration was worth it, Fran decided that it was. Of how many Fran and her teacher defeated, Fran was feeling optimistic as she came across a large red wooden door. She opened the door and stepped inside, hoping to meet the dungeon master and potentially kill him. As soon as they entered, a horde of army beetles came flying towards them and the door closed. Fran and her teacher fought the bugs for about 30 minutes, but there seemed to be no end to them. The leader of the horde was summoning magic and making sure they had an endless supply of soldiers, regardless of how many Fran and her teacher defeated, which then caught the attention of her teacher. After she defeated the horde, Fran felt confident. Fran reached level 17 after she killed the leader of the horde. When they saw a similar door, this time with a blue coloration, Fran felt an intense magical aura coming from inside. Before her teacher barged in, he boosted their defenses with a bunch of support magic and told her he was planning on a killer recipe called curry, leading Fran to jump in with confidence. According to legend, this door is the gateway to a greater demon. The party excitedly made their way to the red door, not knowing what to expect. Upon opening it, they found themselves in a much more ominous part of the cave, where a dragon-like creature was waiting for its prey. The teacher scouts were shocked by how high the stats of the monster were and identified it as a greater demon. He was even more taken aback when he saw a bunch of magic and skills that he was not familiar with. It was then that he remembered the legend. This door was the gateway to a greater demon. At the far corner of the room, an old goblin with a petite figure urges a powerful B-rank demon to end the fight quickly, but the teacher knows he must remain vigilant. The teacher realizes that he must be the dungeon master and that the orb he was guarding is part of the dungeon core. The demon is armed with an enchanted steel longsword with an attack stat of over 1000. The teacher is aware that he must be very careful with every move since one mistake can be fatal. Despite the fact that the teacher may not feel that the fight is serious, he knows that he must remain vigilant. After a while, the demon suddenly disappeared, only to reappear behind Fran and cut off both of her hands. Teacher came in clutch and guarded her before the demon could land a fatal blow. The demon was impressed by her abilities when he saw her instantly heal Fran. He started to spam his teleportation, and it took a while for teacher to realize he was issuing Fran's shadow to manifest himself around the space. Fran kept her composure and was determined to win, as she wanted to know the truth. Despite this, the demon then uses his skill taker ability, copying all of Fran's skills and abilities, which makes things tougher for the two. Now that he has taken Fran's skill, the demon is confident about taking her down with ease. To his surprise, there is no difference in the way Fran and he fight, even though he rushes her with no caution whatsoever. The demon realizes that he couldn't take Fran's powers since she shares the same source of power. The demon's skill taker was unable to take away from Bera's borrowed power because she possessed all of her abilities from the sword itself. Seeing the demon in such a pinch, the dungeon master summoned a bunch of elite goblin fighters to aid him in battle. The demon, feeling insulted, took out the goblins himself, warning the dungeon master to stay out of his way, or else the dungeon master would meet the same fate. He was growing tired of playing games with Fran and prepared to end it all with a large-scale attack. The party feels the impact of the attack all the way through the red door. The attack barely misses Fran. There was no way to deflect it. She is unfortunately not unscathed. The attack dealt a lot of damage and it is hard for her to get back on her feet. Teacher decides that they have done enough and prepares to use the feather to escape. However, Fran wants to protect Elisa at all costs and continues to fight, asking teacher for his utmost support. The demon unleashes a wave of OLED darkness on the other side. On the other hand, Frank is relentless with his dark magic, which the teacher finds hard to counter, as he knows very little of it. He tries to think of a weakness for Frank, as he keeps getting ragdolled. The teacher finds it odd that such a repulsive demon would make sure nothing was harming the dungeon master. He then remembers the time when Donald John talked about how killing the dungeon master would mess with the stability of the dungeon core, ultimately resulting in the death of all monsters inside. He tells Frank this in the hopes of stopping him. The dungeon master aims for the greater demon, and the demon puts his body in harm's way to protect the dungeon master. However, the full brunt of the attack hits Cher, and she is defeated. They then begin to attack the dungeon master with countless fire spells, and the demon puts up a magical shield, which renders most of the attacks useless. The teacher tells Fran that they should aim their power in one big attack to destroy the shield. Fran uses the teacher's abilities to defeat the demon instead of a magical attack. The teacher demonstrates self-awareness, predicting a trajectory and trying to block the demon's attack. He waits for the perfect moment to change direction in midair, confusing the demon. He then charges towards the demon's crystal and uses all his force to land a fatal blow to the demon's chest. Although the crystal is broken and the demon perishes, the teacher still pays the price as he breaks down into pieces. Fran holds the remnants and cries over his death, only for the teacher to restore his former self. The dungeon master summoned more demons after absorbing the mana stored in the demon's crystal. However, Fran took notice and stopped him before he could do anything. Teacher stopped Fran from landing the final blow, as he saw that the dungeon core was done for. The monsters then died and the dungeon changed form, becoming a more colorful and safe ecosystem, indicating that it had come to a halt. After the battle was over, the party arrived and saw that Fran was fine. Teacher was relieved. The corpse of a B-rank demon lying there shocks them. Donna John is furious that Fran took matters into her own hands, despite him telling her that engaging alone would be dangerous. By the time Fran exits the dungeon, Teacher points out that she is now level 25 to 11 levels higher than when she entered the dungeon. They also review a ton of new skills and mastery that they had unlocked inside the dungeon. What's more, they're concentrated on Skill Taker, which is, in their opinion, the most crucial. Klimt looks over the report and congratulates Fran for her significant achievement. He then asked her what happened to the demon's crystal in a cryptic way. She replies that it had been destroyed, which Klimt finds hard to believe, but he lets it slide. Suddenly, a random knight appears behind her, claiming to know the truth and that Fran was lying about the crystal. She knew it would take courage and determination to